So good morning once again, everyone.
Good morning.
I love our Sundays together. Excuse me, I look forward to them all week to see you guys. And welcome everybody on Facebook. Hello, we're live streaming today. We're here. How does my hairdo look? Oh, look at that. We had so much fun on Friday night streaming the concert. We thought, well, we weren't sure exactly what we were doing, to be honest, but we thought this wonderful camera that was donated to us, we said, we got to try it sometime. You know, sometimes you just learn something by just letting it rip. So we let it rip, and it actually ended up being beautiful. There were a couple of little things we learned from. So hopefully, as we continue to do this, it'll be a better viewing experience. And I would also invite everyone that's here today, if for some reason you can't make it, we always would rather you be here in our presence, but if you ever can't make it, you can follow us on Facebook. Eventually we're going to livestream.com, but right now Facebook is the easiest platform for us to go on, but we'll keep you posted on that. We have so many people that have moved away. It's very interesting. I once looked around the room and started thinking of faces that have been here, that have been a vital part of our community, and I thought, what happened to them? They moved, they left, they fled the scene, as we say. And most recently, and I hope she's watching today, our beloved Leslie Borrell got this amazing job opportunity and moved to Charlotte. She was on our board and was so active. And I just think about all those people across the country and now around the world that can still be part of our spiritual family on Sunday morning. I think that's just awesome and great. As I said earlier, we had over 150 people viewing the concert the other night. And it just inspired me to know, wow, we can really reach out into the world, because I don't believe that we're here to grow a church. I don't believe we're here to fill the pews with people and manipulate people to be here. We're here to be a safe place for you to practice whatever spirituality and growth and spiritual journey that you're on. That's the only reason that we're here. That's the only reason that we do this. And to provide you with principles that help you make your life better. Practical principles that you can use during the week when you have problems, when things come up, helping you on your spiritual journey and your spiritual practice. That's why we are here. That's why we have classes on Tuesday night. And I would encourage everyone, hopefully we can eventually begin streaming the classes, because that's where we really begin to grow. I mean, Sunday morning is wonderful and we all get inspired, but when we go into classes, we get that more intense training and that more authentic presence with each other where we're able to really talk things out. And that's why we have meditation on Wednesday night, which we will be to everyone. We will be streaming on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. And everyone that's here today, if you could join us for that too. I think it's the most important thing that we do here, because, you know, Rumi, the 13th century mystic Sufi poet, said it so eloquently when he said, "Enough with such questions. All of your talk is worthless when compared to one whisper of God from the silence." I know for me, I found the most spiritual growth from just being still and listening. Because within us, if we recognize it or not, there is a great wisdom that will lead us, that will help us solve problems. It's there available for us. We just have to use it. And that's why we're here. That's why we are here. To go move deeper into our spiritual journey and to assist you in that. So welcome everybody. If you're watching this on Facebook or you're here in this room, today is a special day. It is Palm Sunday. This Easter season really snuck up on me, to be honest. I put so much energy into the concert we did on Friday night. And I didn't know it was Palm Sunday, but all of a sudden yesterday, Saturday, I was exhausted after the whole day planning to get the camera set up and all the work we did to make that happen. And I got up and I went, oh goodness, tomorrow's Palm Sunday. What are we going to do? But I always trust in, I've learned after speaking for so long, you trust in that guidance. You know, you always get the right answer and always know what to say, hopefully. But I'd like to thank everybody that volunteered to help make Friday night a great success. And Crystal's over here. Crystal sang, and her beautiful little Abby sang. We got more comments about Abby than anything else. We actually did. Abby, her little daughter, how old is Abby now? 7. Such a beautiful, vibrant little personality. She is not afraid to take the mic. And we got so many comments about her saying, Abby looks so beautiful. She's a superstar. She would just get up here. She sang. She danced with me a couple of times. I don't know what that little dance was we did, but it was a weird little thing. I just followed her. We were doing this kind of, I don't know what was going on, but I figured she was younger, so she knew the dance better than me. But thank you, everyone that helped put that together. And we're going to be having that every quarter. So if you want to have a chance to share your gifts with the open mic portion, we had spoken word. Catherine shared a beautiful poem. And who else was there that did something? I'm trying to see. And Bill worked his behind off to make sure everything was clean and ready. And I want to give Bill a round of applause. He does such a wonderful job. He's our office administrator. Wow, every time I come in here, he's here just working and taking care of things, so we appreciate it so much. But it was a wonderful night, and I love the Easter season for many reasons. One, I celebrate it very differently than I did when I was younger, just because I grew up in a different tradition, a different teaching. My parents were Pentecostal ministers, as many of you know. So I saw the Easter story from a very different perspective, really more focused on the resurrection more than anything. And that's all good and well. Where everyone is on their spiritual journey, we honor that and respect that. But I know now it is about the resurrection. It is about the Master that told us, relax, there is no death. You are a holy, blessed child of God. You are eternal. You are loved. You are more than loved. You are adored by this beneficent presence. And the resurrection shows us once and for all that there is no death. There is only life. We hear that over and over in the teaching of unity. There is only life. We hear that in other teachings as well. But to me, it's just wonderful to think about it in those terms and to celebrate the Easter season in a different way. I remember when I was little, and they may still do this, I don't know, but every Saturday night for Easter Sunday, they would show the Ten Commandments. Remember the old one with Charlton Heston, I believe he was in it. And do you remember how we thought when the Red Sea parted that it was just looked so real? And now you look at it, it's pretty hysterical now. It's like, what did they do there? But I remember as a kid, whenever Moses would stretch his hands out and the Israelites were coming to get them, and they said, where are we going to go? There's nowhere to go. And Moses was saying, trust in this force, trust in God. And the sea parted, and they walked across the bottom of the sea. And I remember watching the movie thinking, wow, that is so cool. That was a big tradition for me. And another little weird thing about me, maybe too much TMI, is that even when it wasn't popular, I loved white chocolate. So my mom knew that, and she would search endlessly to get a white chocolate bunny. Because now you get them everywhere, but we're talking about the 60s, so, it wasn't found everywhere. And for some reason, I had tasted white chocolate, and she would search everywhere, and she always came up with a white chocolate bunny, and I would have all my Easter stuff. When you're a kid, you just want stuff and candy and everything. But I have great memories of Easter, and I even have great memories of the church service of my dad preaching, because my dad would preach so fervently about this topic. And what we know, and what I know now is my truth from the evolution that I've had on my spiritual journey, is that the Easter season is more symbolic of each of us in our spiritual journey as children of God. It symbolizes something that we go through on our path as we awaken and remember. Because there is not really a path to anywhere. There's just an undoing of everything that is not us. At the core of who we are, there is only love. There is only beauty, there is only creativity, but we've piled a bunch of stuff on top of it. And our journey is not a journey at all, but an undoing and a letting go of everything that is not us. That's what our journey is. And so for me, the Easter season, I celebrate it so differently as I think about the resurrection, and I think about that's us. That's our story. I love this recording artist named Tori Amos. She's very obscure, so you may not have heard of her. She's a piano player, which I love. She played classical piano, and I was drawn to her back in the 90s. And she had this song called Crucify. She said, why do we crucify ourselves every day? And I thought, this is so cool. And it's true. We are the ones that crucify ourselves. When we refuse to acknowledge our unlimited capacity, and we refuse to acknowledge the love that we are, and we set ourselves up within as victims, and the whole time this presence that created us says, no, you're not that. You are exactly as I created you in all of your grandeur and all of your magnificence. You are still that. No matter what has happened in your life, no matter what experiences you've been through, you are still exactly as God created you. And that's what we have to get in touch with. That's where the power is. That's where the miracle is. And that's why meditation is so important. in whatever format you do it. Even if you don't sit still, some people like to jog, exercise, some people garden, but however you do it, that is the key to uncovering the greatness that lies within you. Because when we meditate, even if it's just for a short time and our mind becomes still, it opens this gap within us and it allows us to access that genius that we are. It allows us to access that love that we cover up with all this junk. Wherever we put our focus, we can look around. We have the choice to see beauty in the world if we want, or we have the choice to see chaos in the world if we want. And I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but it's such an easy, still, simple thing that Neil Donald Walsh said, the guy that wrote Conversation with God. He said, if you do not go within, you will go without. If you do not go within, you will go without. And so Palm Sunday represents moving into the Easter season, the resurrection. For me, Palm Sunday now represents symbolically the arrival of who I am, the best version of me that I can be. The other thing too is, in New Orleans, we think of everything in terms of Mardi Gras. So, a lot of times people will say that, don't live here and say, well, when is Mardi Gras? And I say, well, it backs up from Easter. And they're like, what? It's related to Easter? Well, of course it is, And I always love when people are out of town and don't recognize it and say, did you go to the Mardi Gras parade? I'm like, yeah, I have not a clue about what all happens to our city. But I think it's funny that we think about Easter and Palm Sunday in terms of when was the last time for Mardi Gras. The Palm Sunday is a time of arrival. I did a recording project, and have a CD called You Are What You Seek many, many years ago. And this is what Palm Sunday is about, the arrival of our true self within us. Because we can't really be the love in the world until we recognize the love within us. We can't really efficiently give love into the world until we see that it's already within us. Excuse me. So I was going to talk about some of the metaphysical meanings of Palm Sunday and how different parts of the Palm Sunday story change up a little bit when you look at it metaphysically. It's funny, sometimes people think metaphysical is one of these woo-woo words, like metaphysical. And all that it means, meta means not, so not physical. So anything that's not physical is metaphysical. We're going to have a pop quiz later. So, and on that note, I love that Paul and Brenda on our Tuesday night spiritual education classes once a month have metaphysical Bible study. This is one of the most popular things that we have. I believe it's the second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. where Paul will take, and Paul is brilliant with these things. He knows the Bible back and forth, being a former priest. And he takes scriptures from the Bible and looks at them with new eyes. Because many of the thoughts that we use in New Thought, including the law of attraction, people love Abraham Hicks and the movie The Secret, many of these things originated from these ancient scriptures in a language we don't quite understand, but a lot of our principles come from that if we're willing to look at the Bible with new eyes. And that's what we're going to do today as we talk about Palm Sunday. So Jerusalem represents our abiding consciousness of inner peace. And is everyone familiar with the story where Jesus basically made a grand entrance into Jerusalem, and people greeted him with palms and welcomed him? Everybody kind of familiar with this story? How many people grew up in a more traditional church setting? So you heard the story. When we were young, they would go get, if there weren't palm trees available, they would stick pine straw to a piece of cardboard and make them carry that in. It was crazy. But the children would come in, representing Palm Sunday and waving the palms. A lot of memories about that. But Jerusalem, where Jesus made his grand entrance into, represents the abiding consciousness of inner peace, that part of us that is there all the time. And the good news is this. I love this when I think about my past and I think about things I may not be proud of, is that there is no way possible that you can disconnect yourself from this inner peace and this inner love. It's quite impossible. And the reason is you are that. You are that love. You are that peace. That's what you were created as. If you were here a few weeks ago, I talked about you see people with acts of terrorism and doing these things we think are horrible. That peace is still within them as well. And compared it to like a volume knob on a stereo that said if someone's acting out in violence, it's the pieces turned all the way down. But you can't turn it off. And someone like a Jesus or Gandhi or a Buddha is that volume knob turned all the way up. So the good news is no matter what we've done, no matter where we have been, we cannot separate ourselves from this abiding consciousness of peace. It came with you into this life, and it will leave with you from this life experience, no matter what your journey is. So Jesus, the man who actually was known as Yeshua, I like to sometimes say it'd be kind of funny if he came in here and we'd go like, hey man, there's Jesus. He'd just keep walking to the cookies and get some coffee. He wouldn't know what we're talking about. He was known as Yeshua, and Jesus is kind of like our Americanized version of that. And Jesus represents, at this stage of his ministry, he represents the mature awareness of our Christ nature. In other words, Jesus is just symbolic of the nature that is already within you. Jesus never once said, I am the only Son of God. He said there is one creation, there is one life, there is one son or one child, and we are it. As I said before, you are what you seek. We put that onto him. He was the only Son of God. And that's proven when Jesus said, greater things than I did, you'll do. That doesn't sound like someone that he looked down upon that said, I am the only one and you're down here. I mean, Jesus said, as consciousness grows and as time moves on, you'll even do greater things. And why is that? Because our consciousness expands. I mean, think about 200 years ago how they took out your appendix. How far we've come. Would you want them, would you like to go to the hospital today and they say, well, we've got a doctor, he's going to use the surgery technique that they used 200 years ago. You would probably flee the scene. And I'm using that as an example that everything progresses, and Jesus knew this as our consciousness, which is simply awareness of truth. Consciousness is simply awareness. He knew that we would even do greater things than he did because our mind would have expanded, our consciousness would have expanded. But in this specific story, Jesus represents the mature level of that consciousness, which, by the way, is available to all of us. To all of us. Excuse me. Now, I love this. You know the reason that Jesus rode a donkey into Jerusalem? Because when someone entered into a town or a place on a donkey, it means I'm coming in peace, in meekness. I do no harm. Hopefully, if you ever meet aliens, they'll say that. We do no harm, we mean no harm. Hopefully, aliens will come in on a donkey. Because whenever people would come in on a horse, that meant they came as a strong power, and sometimes to war or to fight. The horse represents what I believe is the ego. That part of us that thinks, I'm just going to go get them, not realize that we're all one thing. The horse represents war in some respects, but the donkey represents peace and meekness. And that's why Jesus came in on the donkey to symbolically show us that he was coming in meekness. And he also, by riding the donkey, said that he was willing to surrender to his Christ nature. Now that sounds all kind of metaphysical and woo-woo, but all that means is that it's up to us to finally accept who we are. Because this presence will not force you to do or think anything that you don't want to. You can choose to suffer as long as you want. Because this force, this loving presence, is not personal. It gives you whatever you want. And it's only up to us to surrender and be willing to accept our Christ nature. It's hard. It seems like that would be the easiest thing, right? To say something like, wow, I'm a blessed, holy child of God. I am holy. That's kind of scary for us to say sometimes. I mean, I still drag around some guilt and stuff. I think it's going to be a lifetime journey to let go of all the stuff that I was taught when I was a child that's just like kind of, stuck in my mind. I'm on my way. Everybody else on your way? You're letting that stuff go? It kind of gets in our way. But you would think it'd be easy to accept our greatness. Why is it so hard? We all struggle with this. Why is it so hard for us to accept our greatness? And Jesus represents our ability to surrender to the truth about us. It's simply the truth. Excuse me. The palms that they wave signify spiritual strength, receptivity, and enthusiasm. So the palms, to me, what I think about is energy. That's the way I personally think about it. The palms represent being receptive to this power, receptive to understanding who and what we are. And I just think about, it was so appropriate that we would have children bringing the palms or the pine straw when I was little, because there was so much energy. They'd be so excited, be waving the palms, like going crazy. And I can imagine that the followers of Jesus were so excited to see him. Some of them maybe had never seen him before, and it was the first time Jesus was a rock star. We have to understand that Jesus was a rock star. That would be like, I don't know, somebody yell out your favorite singer quickly.
Paul Simon.
So what would you do if Paul Simon came in the store and said, hello everybody, how are you doing? Andy, I'd like to meet you. You'd probably freak out and go like, hey, you'd probably wave palms at him.
I'd say, yeah, you will like me.
Yeah, you would like to meet me. Good answer. I knew Andy would have the right answer. But Jesus was a rock star. And like many rock stars, I'm just thinking of this now. It's kind of crazy how thoughts come to me. But, many rock stars don't like being celebrities. They have issues with it. That's why they'll have addiction problems and stuff. Many rock stars are just creating their art. And they love to create their art for that purpose only. And then all of a sudden, millions of people love their art, and they have to be in the spotlight, and they're celebrities, and they don't like it. They're like, I don't like all this adoration. I just want to paint, or I just want to make music. And Jesus was exactly like that. Jesus, in no way, shape, or form, was trying to become a rock star or celebrity. But what Jesus did have was a very keen awareness, fully faithful in who he was. He fully was aware of the light within him. He fully knew that he was an expression of God. He truly knew that he was a beloved child of God. He knew all those things. And when someone knows that fully, there's just this energy around them that attracts people to them. That's why people are attracted even to some celebrities, not even because of what they've done or what movie they've been in or what records they have, just because they have an energy of just a knowing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not arrogant to say, I am it. I am what I seek. God created me whole, perfect, and complete. We have to be willing to accept that. And that's why they were so excited when they were waving the palms. They were receiving Jesus in. Jesus the rock star. That might be a chapter in my new book I'm writing. That would be good. So the crowds. Crowds usually refer to multitudes of material thoughts that are close to being raised to their higher spiritual essences. So we have so many thoughts within us, and I've read a lot of studies about thinking. And about 80% of the thoughts we think are not even our original thoughts. Did you know that? They're not even your thoughts. They're someone else's thoughts that someone else said. Have you ever noticed that some ideas just cycle through your mind over and over and over? And then sometimes it'll stop and you feel relieved from it, and then a month later you're like, I thought I got rid of that over and over and over. It's like, I thought I let that go in 12th grade over and over. We have these thoughts that just love to sneak up on us, and that's what the crowds represent, are these thoughts within us, these large amount of thoughts that are moving into a sense of awareness and awakening. Excuse me. The multitude of material thoughts that are close to being raised to their higher spiritual essences. Do you know the difference between you and Jesus, Yeshua? Is that he only thought the thoughts of God. He only thought the thoughts of God. That is the only difference between you and Jesus. That's it. He didn't hear any other voice. He didn't hear the ego. He didn't listen to his smallness and his limitedness. He fully and completely knew who he was and trusted in that. He accepted that. And that's why he's such a great example for us. So the crowds represent those thoughts being raised to their higher spiritual essences. Hosannas represent the harmonious energies within us that sense freedom from error thoughts. So this is like doing the happy dance. The Hosanna is like the happy dance when we realize that those thoughts, for one, can be changed, and that for two, that we don't even have to do it. We just have to be willing to say, like Course in Miracles says, you have to have a little willingness to turn your mind over to Spirit, to actually change your thoughts and to make things different. So hosannas are a celebration of the fact that this is even possible. Years ago, the Centers for Spiritual Living, that used to be called Science of Mind and Religious Science, their motto was, change your thinking, change your life. That was their thing. Now, they expanded that to go more beyond that, but that was the motto for just a while. And it is so true. Because our thinking comes from the deepest part of who we are, our biggest desires of our heart. So it's not necessarily just the thoughts we think, but also the intention behind those thoughts. And hosannas are when we recognize and we celebrate and do the happy dance that we are letting go of these thoughts of limitation. So the trip to Jerusalem represents our intention to erase our attachment to the temptation of sense consciousness. So it also means to represent our intention to crucify our attachment to the temptations of sense consciousness. So sense consciousness is just simply only believing in what we experience with our body senses. Touch and feel and taste, etc., etc. And there's something much bigger than that. We all have heard about using your sixth sense, right? We have the five senses. I believe there's a multitude of senses, but one way to look at it is, man, that movie was so creepy, The Sixth Sense. You remember that with the little boy that saw I see dead people. Remember that? It freaked me out. The ending was so trippy. I was like, I couldn't sleep for weeks. But there is a letting go of the thoughts that there's more to life than what we see. There is so much more than what you can touch and feel and taste and experience. It's unlimited. There's this group of people, and this really is crazy. I saw this on 2020 about a year ago, and to me it's representative of what's happening in consciousness, which relates to this exact thing that I'm talking about beyond the five senses. There are people that have this issue where their senses are mixed up. So there was one guy who tasted words. So if someone said, now I don't know if this is exactly, this is an example. If someone said, bring me a sandwich, he would taste cheese. Or if they said, hey, let's go to the store, he would taste beer. You understand what I'm saying? Their senses were mixed up. They weren't used for the right thing, and I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. It was just so crazy. You should seek it out. I don't remember the exact name of it, but you can find it online. But what I thought when I saw that, I thought, this is cool, but what this is what's happening in consciousness to begin to show us that there's more beyond the faulty senses that we use. There's this grand experience that we can have if we look beyond that. So that's what the trip to Jerusalem represents. The temple symbolizes our spiritually revitalized ego personality. So we know that at the core of who we are spirit. But we do have an ego personality, or you wouldn't be who you are. Your ego personality is your name and when you were born, and all that's fine and good. The only issue that we have is when we identify with that ego as ourself. It's fine to have a body that appears to be limited, that can be sick, that can die, and experience all these things. That's the nature of this world. However, you don't have to believe that that's who you are. Once again, that's why meditation is so important, because it connects us to our divine, eternal self, that part of us that will never die. Do you realize that you were here before you were born into this body? And whenever you leave this experience, you'll still exist. That essential self of who you are cannot be destroyed. This body and its senses is a temporary experience, and we should be grateful for that. I mean, as much fun as I've had in this life, I love adventure. And I hope to live like my parents to be in my 90s. But when that's over and I leave this experience, I'm taking my essential self with me and getting out of Dodge and going somewhere else. That temple represents when that ego personality begins to recognize that, yes, at this moment I'm experiencing a body and all the things that come along with it. However, this is not what I am. This is not who I am. And one more, driving up the money changers, and I love the guy that talked about this. He said, driving out the money changers, in parentheses, the telemarketers. That cracks me up. That represents the cleansing of our body, mind, and soul of error thoughts, habits, and intentions. And that's what we're doing. That's what I talked about earlier, in the sense that there is no journey. There's just a letting go of our thoughts of error. And I love to mention this during this time, during this season, because some of us are still get the heebie-jeebies when someone says sin, like sin. I mean, I do. I still do, even after all that I know about it. But I've loved that, and now I've learned that sin is just an error of thought. It's an archery term that says you've missed the mark. And what is an error thought? What does that mean? Well, this is what an error thought is, very simplified. I think of it as a dartboard, and you got the bullseye, the red bullseye in the middle, and that bullseye is what God thinks about you. You are beloved. You are unlimited. You are holy. You are God itself. You're like a little pile of God. You're an expression of God, an individualized expression of this one magnificent life. And there is only one life, just as this candle exemplifies. So if we throw the dart and we miss the mark, and we go up here, it says, I am limited, or I'm supposed to experience trauma, or any other thing that we might think of, we've simply missed the mark. Or our biggest one is less than. I'm less than. I'm not good enough. How many times have we thought that when opportunities come to us? That's an error thought, by the way. That's what it means. If you get a really, really great opportunity, a job promotion, or anything that makes your life bigger or grander, sometimes we think things like, I don't know if I really deserve this. I don't know if I'm good enough. That's an error thought. And by the way, it's a lie. It's just simply a lie. So what does this mean? We have lies going around in our head all the time about ourselves. We literally are lying to ourselves over and over again. And driving out the money changers represents us cleansing our body, mind, and soul of these error thoughts and intentions. So we simply begin to see ourselves as God sees us. And that, I think, is what this Easter season really is about. To recognize that the Easter story is our story. Jesus came into Jerusalem on the donkey, surrendering in love, knowing what was to come, knowing that he wasn't a body, knowing that he was a beloved child of God. This is our story. And how many times do we crucify ourselves unnecessarily by not acknowledging who and what we are as divine expressions of life? So in this season, may we open our hearts step by step, recognizing we are the holy expression of God into this world. We willingly give of ourselves and surrender to Spirit that our mind may be cleansed of these thoughts, these error thoughts about ourselves. May we begin to see ourselves as God sees us. Whole, perfect, complete, created in the image and likeness of love itself. It's so much to celebrate during this season. This is the time of our arrival. We are the love that we have been waiting for. We have arrived. And on this Palm Sunday, may we remember this and do our happy dance and wave our palms with excitement, knowing that nothing can change what God has created whole. Surrendering to this truth. You are the beloved. You are holy, the blessed child of God. You are always guided, always safe, always protected. You are what you seek. You have arrived. This is the truth about you. And this is the truth about me. And so it is. Amen.